My name is Susan Ashworth. I live alone in this old 2-bedroom flat. I rarely go outside. Some would say it's a lonely life, and I guess that's true, but I don't like people's company. Not lately, anyway.
The Cat Lady is a side-scrolling horror graphic adventure game about Susan Ashworth, who after a failed attempt to end their life is given a second chance, with a price. The game is available on PC. Atmosphere. After the opening chapter, the rest of the game has this sense of apprehension underneath it, like you're being drawn inevitably towards a predetermined fate. And Susan's actions at the start of the game don't really ever fade from memory, mostly because she doesn't let you, but partly because you can still feel the effects much later. It's a hard situation to relate to, and Susan goes out of her way to push people out of her life. And now on top of that, none of them can understand that for all intents and purposes, she's immortal. She has the upper hand, but she doesn't, and the game puts her constantly through awkward and threatening scenarios time and time again, caught between her reluctance to live her life and the various people determined to take it from her. There is a great sadness that hangs over the game as you walk through the rundown neighborhood of the monotone houses and Susan's black and white apartment. The game's choice of colors feels very deliberate, but even things that are introduced into her life that undoubtedly change it for the better, she's hesitant to accept. The atmosphere is heavily influenced by the story and the scenarios you're forced to deal with character dialogue and music really changing how things feel from moment to moment, from heartfelt conversations between two friends to being trapped inside a murderer's house. The dream or nightmare sequences are unsettling and the conversations are sometimes bittersweet. The Cat Lady is full of changes and turns, and sometimes something profound comes out of nowhere. Even if it's not always frightening or upsetting, the game always makes you feel something. That's one Harry Mason.
I don't need eyes to enjoy your fear. Scream louder, little bitch! Scream your lungs out! Louder, I said!
Scares. Being a graphic adventure game, the capacity to scare the player is quite limited, and the game does try jump scares, but they weren't particularly effective due to the timing of them, with plenty of moments ending up being telegraphed a little too heavily before the payoff, and some just not working anyway. Though there were some that managed to deliver properly, these were quite sparse. The rest of the scares are in the game's themes of depression and its random violence, as well as the price you pay to keep resurrecting, with the game cutting to some pretty upsetting scenes. Really though, the game didn't try anything else to generate scary moments, and whilst not a detriment to the game, it could have been better with its execution of what was actually there. That's still one Harry Mason. Sound design. The game's soundtrack has moments of melancholy beauty with the title music piano that goes a long way to capturing the essence of Susan's mental state in musical notes. A dusty piano plays in the background soaked in reverb as its notes fight to be heard. The music for the rest of the game is a surprising mixed bag of unnerving pieces and more upbeat action and alternative music that you wouldn't expect to hear, but come to appreciate greatly as the game goes on. The sound effects are all very strange, with some being familiar and others almost alien. The jump scare sound is a bit ineffective thanks to its use, but it's a good sound effect in general.
It's time to wake up, my little pussycat. What's the matter, sleepyhead? Had a bad dream?
The game's voice acting is sometimes brilliantly creepy, with David Firth of Salad Fingers fame delivering a very standard for him performance of a disturbing couple of murderers that still excels. But the rest of the cast have technical and performance issues, with some lines of dialogue delivered awkwardly and some distorted recordings thanks to varying qualities of microphones, probably.
I'm not sure I get it. What's the point of that? What did you say it was called again?
For the third time. Social network. Why is it so difficult to remember?
I just find the whole idea really stupid.
Though even through these problems, the dialogue gets its point across. There's no need for directional audio or reverb in a game like this, and whilst it has a few problems due to what is more than likely budgetary constraints, it's never bad enough to ruin the experience. That's 2 Harry Masons. Gore. The game's gore contrasts with the general lack of colour in some parts of the game, but it is one of the main things that brings the horror to the table. The game features some really dark concepts like having bleach poured into your eyes and other horrifying ways to die that are realised by Susan's ability to resurrect when she's killed.
You treacherous, dirty bastard. I opened my heart to you, and you stabbed me to death in cold blood. You'll pay for this. I swear you will.
Though even the things that don't happen to Susan are gory and unpleasant. Finding corpses submerged in bathtubs and killing people with a makeshift mace made out of saw blades. The villains are the sort of people that kill almost for the pleasure of killing and dress it up in whatever way makes it more palatable, like fashioning their victims' bodies into morbid works of art appreciable to nobody but them. But a gory act is brought to an end by another gory act, and Susan enacts her revenge on them. The gore in the game can be satisfying, deeply unpleasant, and grotesque, but it's there for a reason. That's 3 Harry Masons. Story. After Susan Ashworth's failed attempt at suicide, she's awoken in a field and led to someone called the Queen of Maggots, who says Susan isn't allowed to die until she's taken care of 5 parasites. The game then follows this profound journey as her life is put on the line multiple times and she's taught to appreciate life again, or not, depending on your choices and actions. Depression is the main theme of the game and what effects it can have on someone, with everything feeding into it one way or another. The story is the game's obvious selling point, and it's really quite the adventure, with trips into Susan's past as well as forays into places you wouldn't expect. Abstract realizations of the great beyond contrast heavily to the mundane apartment block Susan lives on. The dialogue is sometimes awkward and upsetting, and even when it seems like a situation could be easily resolved with a single sentence, it isn't. And sometimes it's frustrating that Susan herself won't do what needs to be done until she absolutely has to. The game shows you that there are very rarely any innocent parties and that life is cruel, sometimes unrealistically so. Whilst most characters have a backstory and decent motivations, some of the killers don't really seem to, with some coming out of nowhere to play antagonist for a chapter before just disappearing. Random acts of violence and cruelty are a theme of the game, and whether this is a commentary on real life or not, it doesn't always work with the game's pacing and presents several jarring moments. Sometimes it's hard to see where the game is going. Some characters seem to act in a way that's so deliberately unhelpful that it's again jarring. Like the emergency operator doing everything they can to not help you when you're trapped inside a killer's house. But the story is fascinating regardless, and the twists and turns it takes along with the choices you have to change your future and theirs leaves the cat lady feeling like a test of your character and Susan's to see if you've changed, if you can forgive yourself, or if you'll give in to revenge so easily. It's a test to see if you still have hope. Despite quite a few problems with pacing and randomness, The Cat Lady is still a great story, making the final score 4 out of 5 Harry Masons. After playing Burnhouse Lane earlier in the year, which is the spiritual sequel to The Cat Lady, it's easy to appreciate its roots, and whilst The Cat Lady is very rough around the edges, it does an incredible job with its story. Again, I'd like to remind you the whole thing is down to my opinion in horror games, and if you don't share this opinion, then that's cool, I get it. I'd like to point out that whilst I tried very hard to resist revenge, I didn't give up on hope and advise you don't either. There are more horror reviews in the pipeline, and thanks for watching. And always go check out Bumps in the middle of the night. Peace.